Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Dimes, a college basketball podcast. I'm Matthew Brune. Joining me once again is Jamie Shaw. Jamie, how are you doing today?
Man, things are good. Things are good. Well into the season for basketball. Cold weather's here. It's just that time. It's got the aura. The vibes are high.
Again, I don't know what you're talking about, cold weather. It's not cold over here yet. It is currently 76 degrees with a high of 83 today. So I can't relate to you. I
Oh
do not
man,
have the On3 hoodie on that you're rocking.
we got fall leaves and all that stuff here. This is the four seasons that we enjoy in the Carolinas.
All right, all right, all right. We're not no more North Carolina forecast talk here. We got basketball. We got good basketball. But speaking of the state of North Carolina, the game we're talking about first off, really the only marquee game of the weekend, especially I think it was the only high versus high major game, Duke versus Texas. And I say weekend, I meant week. Duke versus Texas. Duke ends up getting the win 75-60. It was tight for a while, and I thought Texas, showed some grit. Obviously, holding Cam Boozer scoreless in the first half was significant. It surprised me, and I think he started 1 of 10, ends the game 3 of 12. We could talk about that aspect of it, but in general, Duke to overcome that, to be able to get this win by 15 over a Texas team that maybe we have a little bit more questions, but is not a bad team. To still get that win comfortably, I think is impressive. So, what are your overall thoughts on the Duke win over Texas?
Well, overall, watching this game, it wasn't very aesthetically pleasing. It, it,
No,
it was,
no,
it
it
was
wasn't.
kind of an ugly game. Took them a long while to get rolling, but once they finally got rolling a little bit, you started to get a little bit more feel as to what these two teams were all about. What really impressed me the most was the defensive aspect of what Duke was able to do. They Texas they took away Texas's first options within most of their offensive sets. They pushed them high, catching the ball outside of the areas they were trying to look to get to. Their length and switchability and all that, the physicality they had kind of on the block. Very impressed. It made Texas uncomfortable, and it was noticeably uncomfortable from what they had. Obviously, you saw Dalen Swain was able to get loose early. The adjustment was made there. He ended up with 16-6, a very impressive performance from the Xavier transfer. Followed Sean Miller to Texas as well. But for me, the takeaway was Duke's defense. When things aren't rolling offensively, and they went through spurts. Obviously, Isaiah Evans went through his spurt, ended up with 20
Yes.
plus. Um, Cam Boozer was able to get to the free throw line and get his offense in the second half. The ball moved very well and all that stuff. But I think John would even tell you that wasn't their A game offensively, especially. And there's still room for growth. But this Duke team was able to hang their hat on the defensive end of the floor, really making things uncomfortable for a Texas team that has high major talent, that has a very good coach, that has good stuff with them. They were able to make things very uncomfortable and consistently win the game on the defensive end of the floor. And that was very impressive for the Duke team.
Yeah, I think for Duke, you took the defensive side of it, so I'll look at the offense. Like you said, it wasn't aesthetically pleasing, but for Isaiah Evans to have the game that he had, it was exactly what we were talking about going into the year, being like, all right, Duke has all these freshmen we talked about, these newcomers and stuff, but Isaiah Evans is back, and we know what he can do in terms of shooting the basketball and scoring. And he is a guy that can get you out of a slump single-handedly, and he can bail you out at times. And that was the difference for a lot of this game was Duke has Isaiah Evans, makes quick catch and shoot threes, tough shots. I mean, he had some really good cuts to the basket where he catches and finishes. A guy who I think just knows how to score, and the feel for the game this year compared to last year is just a huge difference. And so I really want to give him a shout out. I think that was huge. Dame Sarr hits a couple threes, which obviously were significant. I like Dame Sarr's just how he moves on the court. Obviously, he was a highly rated guy for a reason, but you see and you can kind of feel his presence on the court. So again, then once Boozer gets going, he's really tough to stop. Nick Cody did a decent job on him. Lucina Traore did a good job. Texas did a better job than I expected. They did throw some double teams at him where he was able to pass and find the open man. He had 3 assists. But overall, if you're Texas, you're like, you take that from in terms of a Cam Boozer and Patrick Gongba type of night. But ultimately, I think it's really encouraging that Duke was able to have this backcourt step up and be like, all right, Isaiah Evans, boom, Caleb Foster hit some timely shots, Dame Sar as well. So that's probably my encouraging part of this Duke win.
And this is back-to-back games here where Cam Boozer has kind of struggled finishing consistently.
Mm-hmm.
He's still been able to, given the high feel that he has for the game, he's still able to impact winning in the way that he did, both rebounding and his incredible passing ability. But there's a little bit of a struggle there that he's having a curve coming from the high school game into college that he showed at Tennessee and now at Texas how does he consistently generate his offense? He's not the most twitchy guy out there in the 6'8" range. How does he consistently generate his offense? That's going to be something that he evolves with. He's too good of a player and has too good a feel for that to consistently run into that brick wall. He will adjust, and John Shire is too good of a coach to not get him into sets that will consistently get him clean looks at the basket as well. So I'm going to be curious to see how that morphs and continues to evolve moving forward with Cam Boozer specifically. And what I'm very interested in seeing with this team, and I don't really know how to phrase this, but they have two guys that are off ball that are incredible passers, quick processors with Nick Kamenia and Cam Boozer.
Mm-hmm.
So both of those guys, you can put the ball in their hand at different levels of the half court, and you can run their offense as an offensive hub through them while, they're threats to score the basketball, but also really set up teammates off of off-ball movement and actions in that manner. So I'm going to be very curious to see as to kind of the different looks that Duke's able to give throughout the year. Caleb Foster, he's up and down throughout the two exhibition games and in this first game. Down in the first half, had a good second half and bounced back and was able to give them a spark in the second half. So I'm going to be curious to see and then Caden Boozer coming off the bench, he's just as steady as they come. You've seen this guy at Duke, Tyrese Proctor's of the world, Tyus Jones of the world, just the steady point guards that come in there, but he's also still a freshman. So getting his sea legs in there to get the steady minutes. But I'm going to be very curious to see the interesting type of offenses that Shire's able to run this year, running things through a guy like Nick Kamenia and then Cam Boozer as an initiator, not necessarily a play finisher, but as an initiator within the offense. This Duke team's intriguing to me. Them showing that they can get a win with the defensive end of the floor like that is intriguing to me. Also, Isaiah Evans showing that he can tote the load of an offense. Also very intriguing that it doesn't necessarily need to be Cam Boozer. While Cam Boozer is going to have all the eyes on him as well, Isaiah Evans is going to be able to kind of run free and be able to get some one-on-one matchups and some sloppy closeouts. And he showed with those sloppy closeouts that you're going to have to, be more control with him because he attacked the rim a couple times in straight lines, both creating offense for, off the dish or finishing at the basket as well. So I'm intrigued to see. They're not quite there yet, but I'm intrigued to see as to how this Duke team comes together. I think that Caleb Foster and then possibly the big man depth behind Patrick Gongba, Malik Brown, them staying healthy and continuing to progress. But I think Caleb Foster and that depth could be the difference between them being a round of 32 team and a Final Four team this season.
Yeah. Flip it to Texas real quick. A really interesting team here. The thing that surprised me maybe the most was, and I don't think Pope had a bad game per se, but Pope and Mark, I think I just had too high of maybe expectations going into it. And again, this is a tough matchup. But Pope ends the game 3 of 10 from the field, hit 3 threes, but 3 of 10 from the field. Tremont Mark, 1 of 2 in 24 and a half minutes. I know I wasn't expecting him to be like a super high volume guy within this team because I know Swain is going to do a lot and Matas is going to shoot a lot. But Mark has to be more assertive at times, I think, for this team. I mean, two shots and 1 free throw is just not going to get it done because in my head, the only way this team has enough shooting and a real like punch on the perimeter is if Pope, Mark, and then also even like Simeon Wilcher, I had fairly high expectations for coming over. Not to say he can't reach them, but 15 minutes, 0 for 3 from the field. Like those 3 guys have to produce more. And that's probably my takeaway. Swain was good enough. Cody, I thought had some good, like I said, defensively was good. Matas, 3 of 8, kind of hit or miss, 9 of 10 from the free throw line. It's just kind of on the backcourt to me.
Yeah, no, I think this Texas team has some pieces. They just got to figure themselves out. They don't really necessarily have a true initiator, possibly Dalen Swain being the best ball in hand guy to make decisions. So it'll be interesting to see how.
They had 6. Sorry to cut you off. They had 6 assists to 16 turnovers.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then the athleticism in the front court's a little interesting. Matas, a good player and everything, a little bit heavy-footed, so I'm gonna be curious to see what the rotations and how the defense looks with that. Obviously, Sean Miller's a good coach, has had a lot of success, and there is talent on this team. So I'm very eager to see kind of what they look like in January as opposed to November as they continue to figure it out.
Yeah. All right. I don't have anything else on Texas. I think that they're going to be a fine team. Again, like I said, I just think they need to get their backcourt kind of going a little bit more. I don't know what their schedule is coming up, but I'm interested to see them against a team that's not Duke. And I think they can get their feet under them. So
Yeah.
we will see. All right, let's go to some of the matchups for this weekend because there's some fun ones. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I believe tonight we're recording this on Friday. This will be up on Friday. But Kansas versus North Carolina at the battle of the freshmen, right? Darren Peterson, Caleb Wilson, obviously a lot of talent around them. I know you tweeted out what you're excited to see in this, so I'll let you go first. What catches your eye here?
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Wilson and Darren Peterson. Obviously, they're not one-on-one. They're not guarding each other or whatnot. But I mean, all eyes are going to be on them. The NBA people, draft people, NBA teams, and everybody's going to be in there watching to see kind of how these guys respond in this type of environment early on in the season. You know, you have Darren Peterson being talked about as a potential number one overall. You have Caleb Wilson trying to creep into the top five. I think he's there in the top five right now, but trying to continue to grow there.
Mm-hmm.
They're both coming off good first games. They've had an exhibition season and then one game to kind of get their sea legs together and see what it looks like. Wilson had 22. Darren Peterson had 21 in their openings. So I'm very interested to see. You look at Peterson, you see him kind of in still a high usage role, but in an off ball type manner to where offense gets run a little bit. The ball ends up in his hands and he's able to kind of go create and get downhill and play some offense. And you see Wilson, he does a little bit of everything. You know, he's a 6'10" guy, long. He's able to guard multiple spots on the floor, but he's also able to have the ball in his hands and create a little bit of offense as well. High flying player. There should be a lot of excitement around that matchup, but also there's a matchup of two good teams. You know, two teams that have a lot. They're blue bloods. I don't think there's any discussion about that. UNC and Kansas are both blue bloods, but there's questions within the fan bases over the last couple of years' performances and all this type of stuff that's happening. These two teams have high expectations. These two fan bases have high expectations. And looking at this Kansas team, they had 8 players that played 12 plus minutes in the first game. So there's a little bit of depth there. There's a little bit of, team continuity that they have there, while all eyes will be on Darren Peterson. 8 players getting 12 plus minutes, and he also had 20 assists on 33 made field goals in the game. So there's going to be ball movement and all that stuff. Carolina also has a lot of depth that they have. The secondary matchup that I'm looking for in this, Henry Vassar, Flory Badunga, very intrigued as to kind of how that looks and what that looks like. They're both centers, but they're both very different. Vassar's a 7-footer that's skilled, has good length. You're going to see him pulling away from the basket a little bit, running some offense through him, as well as getting down on the low block, playing in the pick and roll a little bit as well. Badunga is a twitchy, high-octane athlete. He's going to be playing close to the rim. He's going to have the defensive side with him. He's going to be playing in the short corners, the dunker spots, and you're going to see him flying all over the floor in the 6'8" range with good length and incredible athletic pop. That's going to be an interesting matchup to see as to how those guys go. How deep into the bench does Carolina go? You have Kyan Evans, who had a really good first game on the ball at the point of attack. You're seeing Jaron Stevenson coming in, who had good minutes. Luka's back now and eligible to be able to play. And then Trey White on the other side with Kansas. There's just a lot of kind of mini storylines within this game, within this matchup of these two teams early in the season. But the top of the line, Caleb Wilson, Darren Peterson.
Yeah, I won't add too much more. You covered it pretty well. Peterson, if you're North Carolina, you have to get him off the three-point line. And I know he can score it in a lot of ways, but if he gets going from three, he is really, really tough to stop. As we saw in the exhibition, as we saw 3 of 7 against Green Bay, just really fantastic shooter and fantastic scorer. And then to further your point on the front court, this for Kansas, if Flory starts to have trouble at all with the size of Visar. You do have Bryson Tiller, who you can bring in here, who I thought had a really encouraging exhibition, and comes off a game where he had 2 blocks against Green Bay. Flory had 3 in that game. So they have, between those two, they can figure it out. I think at the 5 spot. I am curious to see how this game goes. Again, early season in Chapel Hill. I'm interested in a Friday night, ESPN, 6 o'clock Central Time. We'll see how it goes. Next game. Oh, just some huge games here. Alabama versus St. John's on Saturday. I don't know where to start here because these are about as two different of teams as you could possibly get. And St. John's wants to be big, wants to be tough, is going to be really, really athletic and physical and put pressure on the rim. Alabama, albeit has athletes, but is going to try to run, try to make St. John's uncomfortable, try to speed them up consistently. LeBaron Philon, like we've talked about, Aiden Holloway, Latrell Wright, so we all know the names at this point. Alabama's going to try to win the math game and also try to win the track meet. And if they're able to do that, I do think it's going to be a lot for St. John's. But ultimately, I still am just very, very high on this St. John's front court. Watching Dylan Mitchell's performance in exhibition, I thought he looked fantastic against Michigan. Obviously, Zuby, and you go down the list of guys here. I think there's enough for St. John's to slow them down, but that's definitely the contrasting styles is what stands out and what we're going to be interested in watching here.
No, I agree with you. I think you have Alabama on one side. Nate Oates is playing the analytics game, spread the floor. Try to get threes and at the rim twos, and you have St. John's that's going to try to be a little more physical, muck it up a little bit, and really be get after it on the defensive end of the floor. So it's going to be very interesting to see as to who's kind of able to establish, their presence within that. You have an interesting matchup, almost like the UNC Kansas game. They're not going to be one-on-one against one another, but the high-level matchup between LeBaron Philon with Alabama, who's going to be vying for possible SEC Player of the Year type honors, had 22 and 8 in the first game, 8 assists. Then you have Zuby Ejiofor, who's going to be vying for Big East Player of the Year honors, returning in there. So that's going to be a very interesting matchup. Obviously, Philon's a point of attack guy, the lead guard. You have Zuby Ejiofor at the center. So it's going to come down, I think, to a whole bunch of the other guys that are around him. For St. John's, you have the depth. You have that 3-headed front court monster that you talk about
Hopkins
with Zuby, along with Bryce Hopkins and Dylan Mitchell. But then you also have the guard play. You have some guys that can do little things with Dylan Darling, Ian Jackson, Josan San, and Osiah Sellers. They have some depth at the guard spot as well as guys who can touch the paint as well as create their own offense and knock down shots. What does the continuity look like within that team? The continuity of team ball, moving the ball. Can they consistently score and get good shots? And then on the other side with Alabama, you mentioned Latrell Wrightsell, you mentioned Aiden Holloway. A player I'm very interested in watching is Amari Allen. Very intrigued to see the freshman wing, kind of what he does and the step that he's able to take for this team. There's a lot of talk about him in the preseason. There's a lot of excitement within the program about Amari Allen. I'm eager to see with the brightest lights coming on, what does Amari Allen's play look like for this team? And then how does Aiden Sherrill play? How does Taylor Bowen play? Noah Williamson? What do they look like against the front court of St. John's coming here? But this is a very intriguing matchup. This is a huge stage for LeBaron Philon, who was getting NBA draft buzz this past year, came back at the last second to play in games like this, to boost his stock in manners like this. What does he look like with the bright lights on? And can he carry this Alabama team? It's a very intriguing matchup with, while the styles are so contrasting and all that type of stuff, very intriguing matchup with, outcomes that could happen here.
Yeah. That is at 12 o'clock Eastern time on FS1 in New York in Madison Square Garden. Obviously, St. John's home. Next game, Arkansas, Michigan State. Another blockbuster here. I do wonder. Now, I was someone who came into this season kind of bullish on Michigan State, and I came in, expecting their returning players to take a step forward. That I understand the hesitation from a lot of people in terms of like, all right, you lost all of this talent. How are you going to step up? How are you going to replace that? A lot of my belief is in Tom Izzo, but Jeremy Fears, obviously, Cohen Carr, Jackson Kohler, that group, that core is going to have to be really good in this game. And going against Arkansas, just on paper, And what we've seen from Arkansas this year, I struggle to see them keeping pace with Arkansas's talent right now. Like the way Arkansas has played through exhibitions, and then just to start the season, we talked about Acuff and Malik. We've talked about them every podcast seemingly since we've over the past couple weeks. And when you pair them with the Brazil, the Ewans, like I didn't even mention DJ Wagner yet. Like I just think Arkansas has a lot, and I'm very, very high on this Arkansas team. I think I had them third in the SEC or something like that. So that's going to be interesting to see if Michigan State can keep pace here, because I do think this is one where Arkansas, if they get hot, if they get going, can create some separation.
I was not very bullish on this Arkansas team coming in because I had questions as to what it would look like at their guard spots, specifically bringing in a Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff and to put them with DJ Wagner, all three guys that have to have the ball in their hands. Now, I believed in the other positions. I just wanted to see what it looked like with those three on the floor together. And the exhibition games gave one. This is what Calipari does. I mean, this is what Calipari has done in his time at Kentucky and all that. He's taken a whole bunch of talented guys together, have them buy into the overarching theme of the locker room, and had them play their best. I mean, he did it with De'Aaron Fox and Devin Booker and Rob Dillingham, and the list goes on of players that he put within these situations. And this is kind of what Calipari has done. So, looking at what they have, I agree with you. I mean, you see this Michigan State team. Jackson Kohler's a double-double machine. He's going to get his stats, be physical around the basket. He's going to stretch the floor a little bit and do that. Cohen Carr, the best athlete on every floor he walks on. What type of step has he taken within getting stuff done in the half court? If a team takes away his primary move, does he have the secondary option in his bag now and all that? You have Carson Cooper, Jeremy Fears, and then, as you mentioned, Tom Izzo. Tom Izzo is the biggest factor of all here, one of the best coaches in the game. But this Arkansas team, the talent level that they have, still having what Malik Thomas has been able to do so far. I think he had 22-7 in the first game, or 21-7 in the first game, assists, being able to all over the floor, even coming off the bench, but he's still able to carve out his space and just play with pure electricity. And the biggest factor, I don't even know if he's the biggest factor, but the biggest step forward on this team for me with Arkansas is Billy Richmond. What he's been able to do, he's always been a guy who's been able to make plays with the ball in his hand and defend multiple spots. But now that he's knocking down the shot, pulling gravity, opening up spacing, it just allows that team to be so much more dangerous. Carter Knox on the wing as well. You mentioned Trevon Brazile. You mentioned Malik Ewan. You got Nick Pringle back there as well, who's got NCAA tournament experience in the SEC as well. This Arkansas team is good. And what Calipari has shown throughout his career, it seems that he's kind of back in his bag this season. Obviously, super early. But it seems that he's back in his bag, pulling all of these guys together and getting them paid for the common group with a chip on their shoulder. So I'm going to be fascinated to see how this game goes, Izzo versus Calipari, the talent on the floor, the physicality that Michigan State brings. I think we're going to see exactly where this Arkansas team is. While Michigan State might not have as much talent on the floor, man to man, the physicality they bring, I think we're going to see very clearly as to kind of where this Arkansas team is once they come out of this game.
Yeah. The next game is one that I'm just really excited to watch. And I know it might not be for some people, but Oklahoma versus Gonzaga is a fascinating game to me. Gonzaga, I don't know where they're ranked in the AP poll, but let's just say top 10 team in the country. Obviously, Ty and Grant Foster is playing. He had 15 points in their first game, looked good. And with him, along with Huff, along with Ike, you now have a front court that rivals really anybody in the country. And on the other side, when you look at this Oklahoma team, I would say they have size. Don't get me wrong, Davis, Reed, Vaughn. I think they have enough size here. But I look at Nigel Pack. I look at Xavier Brown. Even Cool Attack had 18 points, 4 of 8 from 3. I remember seeing him on the circuit and being like, okay, that's like a real shooter, a real guy that can score off the bench as a freshman. So it is, again, different styles here, but I'm just really interested. I think we're going to learn a lot about both these teams here. Both teams have some expectations, and obviously at different levels. Gonzaga is considered a top 10 team. I want to see, are you actually a top 10 team? Because we need to know it in the non-conference with y'all. And then Oklahoma, this is a completely different roster for Porter Moser. This is a big year for him. Is he able to punch above his weight class and what perceived as, should be a talented Oklahoma team here?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a very sleeper, great game, and I'm glad that you chose it for us to be able to talk about. This Oklahoma team is one that I don't think many people are talking about right now. But in going through, watching their game film and going through their roster, I'm very intrigued with what they have. You have the Qual Atok guy, who's an on-3 outlier when it came to the rankings in the top 100. 6'9" and a shooter, 4 of 8 from the 4 of 8 from 3, 18 points. But that's just icing on the cake for what this Oklahoma team is. As you mentioned, the guard play. You have the experience with Nigel Pack and Xavier Brown coming in, guys that have scored a lot of points in college and played a lot of games, a lot of meaningful games as well in the college ranks. You put those two in the backcourt, and then you kind of piece it together with the Tay Davis and the Darion Reeds of the world, Muhammad Wage in the front court, with Qual Atok as well. And they can give you so many different looks and so many different matchup problems of guys that can be two-way type players. Darion Reed is a good defender. Tay Davis is a good defender. Muhammad Wage is a good defender. You have length. You have guys who can get into the passing lanes, guys that can switch and slide. So there's a lot of different looks that this Porter Moser team is able to give, and they're able to dictate the pace of it. Also, from a backcourt that has this type of experience, but also this type of scoring ability from both spots on it as well. So I'm very eager to see what they look like against this Gonzaga team, who got Tyron Grant Foster eligible right before the season started, and that's massive. That changes the entire outlook of what this Gonzaga team brings, because he's the guy that can generate offense. He's the guy that you can put the ball in the hands with 5 seconds left on the shot clock, and he's able to go get a bucket. And that's huge for this Gonzaga team. Kind of looking down at what they have some size. Graham Ike is going to be vying for All-American honors. And you kind of see what he's able to do. But they also have a little bit of depth. They had 7 guys that took between 5 and 11 shots in their opening game, and they attempted 22 threes as a team. You're looking at it. My question with this Gonzaga team is, can they get the stops? What does the defensive side of the ball look like with this Gonzaga team? Come in with guys like Braden Huff, who is a very, very good scorer of the basketball. The stops. Can they get the stops in the backcourt at the point of attack? So with this Gonzaga team, they have the talent, they have the experience, they have Mark Few. Much like Tom Izzo, Mark Few has won a lot of games in college basketball.
Yeah.
And they have the offensive talent to be able to run and go with everybody that they play against. Can they get the defensive stops? And I think this Oklahoma team is a sneaky team. I think this Oklahoma team is a better team than people possibly are giving it credit for.
Yeah. Last game, just real quick, Washington Baylor was one I mentioned to you before we started here. It's like a sneaky game that, again, I don't think people are really paying attention to because they're not ranked, but this is a fun matchup between a lot of underclassmen. We talked about Hans Steinbeck before, but then Wesley Yates, younger player, JJ Mandaquit, younger player, Bryson Tucker. That's 4 starters for Washington right there that are all freshmen or sophomores. And Washington's already played 2 games. This will be their 3rd game. This game is, I believe, on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. This is going to be really interesting because Baylor on the other side, Tunde Yesufu and Cameron Carr have been their best players so far this year. And I know we've talked a lot about the transfers and the seniors with Obi Ogbim and Dan Skillings and Michael Rataj, but both these teams are led by underclassmen that are really, really exciting. And, Yesufu will be drafted. Steinbeck maybe enters the draft. We'll see. But, this is some real talent on the court here, and I'm not sure which way this goes. But, again, our first chance to really, really learn about these 2 teams.
This is exciting because these other matchups that we have don't have the one-to-one matchups. You got Phylon versus and Zuby. point
Yeah.
guard center. You have Caleb Wilson, who's a power forward, versus Darren Peterson, who's a shooting guard. I'm very intrigued by the Hans Steinbeck Michael Rataj matchup here
Yeah.
in this game. I think Rataj is a very undervalued player with the amount of stuff that he's able to affect on the floor: ball in hand, decision making ability, quick processor, all that, and then obviously Hans Steinbeck. He's just going to be a machine when it comes to production throughout this season. He's been all that way for Germany. He's been all the way in his career. He's going to come to the United States, and he's going to really produce at a high level. So I'm very interested to look at that matchup. But then also you mentioned the JJ Maniquits of the world, Wesley Yates, Bryson. These are all guys who were highly valued guys coming in, top 75 type recruits coming into the college game. A couple of them got looks at other places, and they're coming back now. To get, they started other places. They're coming to Washington to kind of resurrect their careers. And you have JJ Maniquit coming in, multiple time gold medalist with USA basketball and FIBA games and all that stuff. So this is a very interesting Washington roster. How they find their rotation and minutes and what they look like on the floor, I'm intrigued to see, because there's somebody who could do some damage later in the season with what they have. And then you have this Baylor team, again, Scott Drew, another one just like Mark Few, just like Tom Izzo, won a ton of games, is at the top of the game and all that stuff. But he's got a very intriguing roster as well. Cam Carr coming over from Tennessee mid-year last year. Now he's coming in. He had a lot of tools, on three previously, first one to have him in the rankings and stuff and put him throughout the process in the high school ranks. He has all the tools. His dad's a former NBA dunk contest guy. So he's long and athletic and shoot the ball. He's just got to kind of put it all together. He's a late bloomer in high school coming in. We'll see if he's able to put together Obi Agbum, and then obviously all eyes are going to be on Tunde Yusefu and what he's able to do. The state of California's all-time leading high school prep scorer. So these are two teams that have a lot of talent, and we're not quite sure how that talent pieces together. So I'm very interested. That'll be the interesting part of this game, as to what do Scott Drew and Danny Sprinkle able to put together, and what does that look like?
That game is Sunday night at 8:30 Eastern time on ESPN in Foster Pavilion in Waco, Texas. So just an incredible slate over the weekend. I know we're going to have a lot of really good slates because the weekends are usually loaded, especially once you get to conference play. But like for non-conference, and we're 4 days into the season, this is about as good as you could ask for. All right, real quick, let's pick them. We've given all of our reasonings and what we're looking to watch for and stuff for these games. Let's pick them. You maybe add a sentence or two in terms of why. Kansas, North Carolina. Let's start there. Who do you got?
North Carolina. Kansas coming to Chapel Hill. I think that this Chapel Hill team has a lot to play for. I think Kansas is still kind of figuring a couple things out. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be a lot of fireworks. I think Darren Peterson is going to be good. Ultimately, give me North Carolina to win this one in a close one.
I'm with you. North Carolina at home is a big factor. But then also, I just think the overall balance of that team and Visar in the middle, I think, is going to be a lot for them. Peterson maybe gets hot, but I think North Carolina has enough bodies to throw at him. All right, Alabama, St. John's, second game. Who do you got?
St. John's. I think the physicality of what they bring, I think they're going to have enough on offense. I think the front court's going to be able to establish their presence. I think their defense is going to make it hard to get into preferable sets on the Alabama side of things. If Alabama was able to get out and run, I think they win. But I think St. John's going to dictate the pace of this one. I think St. John takes it in a close one.
Yeah, I agree. I'm on St. John's. I think, like I said earlier, if Alabama's allowed to play Alabama style, then they can definitely win this game. If not, will likely win this game. But I've just been too impressed with St. John's so far in their front court. I think they're really going to punish Bama, get them in foul trouble, make them work on defense. I think St. John's wins this, I'll say, by more than 5 points. So I'll give me St. John's somewhat comfortably here. Arkansas, Michigan State. Who we got?
Arkansas, I think, will take this one. I think this one could be close back and forth early, but I think at the end of the day, the Arkansas talent will take over. We're going to learn a lot about this Arkansas team in this game. We're going to learn a lot about the mental fortitude, as the physicality and stuff with that. But I think the Arkansas team is just too talented and with depth. I think they take this one, and I will. We'll see how close it is.
Yeah, I think Arkansas, like I said earlier, I think they can pull away. This will be, if Michigan State is able to keep this close, it's going to be Izzo. It's going to be this experience of this team and this kind of mental and the fortitude that they always have. That's kind of been an Izzo staple. And can you kind of wear them down on the other side, make these freshmen, make these guys uncomfortable? And I know we've settled there. We've talked about the freshmen a lot for Arkansas. We talked about Wagner, but like they have some experience too. Like they're not all young across the board. This isn't a Kentucky team where they got 10 freshmen out there. They got some older guys that can play too. So give me Arkansas to get that win. Oklahoma, Gonzaga.
This one's a tough one.
This is tough.
Yeah, this was a tough one. Everything about me says Gonzaga kind of going in and all that, but I really do have the questions about the defensive side of the ball with Gonzaga. I don't really know what to make of that. So I'm actually going to go with Oklahoma in this one. I think it'll be a close one, a battle to the end. But
I like it.
Yeah, this is a tough one. This was a tough one for me.
This will be one where I think if this game was played in a month or so, I'd probably lean Gonzaga a little bit more. I think Oklahoma has the tools that can catch Gonzaga. Like I think just in a one game setting in the on November 8th at whatever time 7:30 Pacific time, I think they can catch them. The problem is this game is in Spokane.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to stick with Gonzaga just mostly because of that. I think that's probably why. But I do think this will be a good showing from Oklahoma. And even just keeping this close on the road against Gonzaga week 1, I think gives me a lot of confidence that Oklahoma can make some real noise in the SEC this year. The last game, like we just covered, like we just talked about, Washington, Baylor. What do you think?
This is another one. I'm very intrigued by both teams. I think both teams still have question marks. I think both teams are still trying to figure out their identity and what they have going. Looking at it, I think this Baylor team is going to be very good at the end of the year. I think they're going to be a tough out when it comes to January, February basketball. But for right now, I think Washington wins this game. I do think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be a battle back and forth. But I like I like Washington. I like a JJ Mandaquit run team and the talent that he has around him.
Yeah, I have real concerns still about this Baylor team's defense. They gave up 81 points to UT Rio Grande Valley. Like, that's not good. And I mean, coming off years where they were not good defensively, still, like I'm curious to see if they're going to be able to do anything defensively. They tried Caden Powell out there in the front court. Like we talked about, Michael Rataj is a good player. They need to get healthy and kind of get their full deck, I guess, in the front court here. But even with that concern, I do think they have enough here with Carr and Yesufu to wear down Washington, score enough, and you're playing at home. I'm going to take Baylor in this one in a tight game here. Really fun game that I will be tuned in for. So Sunday night, there's the slate of the weekend. Really, really interesting, really fun. We'll recap all of that next week, everything we saw, our biggest takeaways, and our standout players. So be on the lookout for that. Jamie, this was fun, as always. Great talking ball with you. I'm excited for this weekend. I will be in Tuscaloosa for football, but after that, we'll be catching up on all the basketball because it's basketball season. Yes, we're locked in. All right. Thank you all for joining us. Leave us a like, comment, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you all for checking out our videos, checking out the site, the YouTube page, and everything like that. So, yeah, y'all have a good weekend, and we will talk to y'all next week.
See ya.